Hi there.
Hi there.
Hi, Jane. How are you?
Hi. It's so fun to be here.
We're so excited to have you on and to talk about aliens. I'm so excited.
We've been wanting to do this for a while. I feel like it's been a topic of our... Megan, for some reason, always asks me, like, hey, if you could get impregnated by an alien, would you do it? And it always comes up on our podcasts. And then we dive into it. I'm like,
I forgot about that.
We should bring an alien specialist on here and see her opinions.
That's a good conversation starter.
Yeah.
Honestly, I forgot that we haven't asked that question in a while.
Yeah.
It is a good question because I'm on the stance that that's terrifying. The idea of being like taken from my house without knowing, but like having like weird flashbacks that you were taken and then all of a sudden you're like, I think I had a kid, but I didn't have a kid. What is going on? And that, like, I hate it. That's like I don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to burst your bubble, but you don't have a bubble. It sounds like you're very aware, actually, but there are many people who had that experience. So,
see?
Yeah.
Raquel, do you still want to be impregnated by an alien?
You only live once, Megan. You only live once.
Hey, it's an experience.
And if I'm not trying to have human babies, I would definitely be down. I mean, I've always said, like, if I could give birth to cats, I would. I think that was the question. She's like, would you be down to give birth to cat, like, you know, furry babies or aliens? I'm like, aliens seems, I don't know, like a once in a lifetime. I mean, so does cats, but I don't know. I'm just in it for the experience.
It depends on the species, right? Or
right.
the intention.
Right. So when people talk about their experience, you know, is it like traumatic, or have you ever met someone who was like, it was hot?
Right. Well, so there are some abduction accounts that do go into some great detail, and there have been, I would say, more positive experiences. I've heard things like there was a beautiful woman, you know, those kinds of stories do exist. But I would say for the most part, when, you know, an abductee contacts me or some of the more historical cases, it's tends to be a scarier, uncomfortable, undesired experience.
Sure.
And it seems like those who or have claimed to have contact, you know, have had contact, end up processing it over many years. So some will end up having like a positive take on it, but only sort of after thinking about it, after doing, you know, hypnotic therapy and regression and things like that. A really famous case of that would be, I don't know if you guys have heard of Travis Walton. There was a movie made about his experience. So he's one of the most well documented abductees. So this was the 1970s in Arizona. He was a logger. So he's out in the woods with a bunch of other guys. Sorry, I'm assuming they're all guys based on the report. And he's going home with his buddies. They're in their pickup truck. All of them see a flying saucer above the woods. And so they stop the vehicle to go check it out. Travis decides to get out and walk up to the craft while the rest stay in the pickup truck. A big blue beam of light comes out of the flying saucer and knocks him down. This was all witnessed by the men in the truck. They are concerned for their friends, but they're too afraid. They drive home. They leave. Travis Walton did go missing. There was a manhunt for him. It was in the news nobody has been able to disprove those basic events. When Travis Walton did return, he had really, really scary memories of frightening creatures that sort of look like the classic gray aliens you guys may have heard of. And it was just a terrifying experience. However, over time, I've heard that he's concluded that he believes that the ETs were trying to help him. so that he was injured when he was knocked down with the beam of light, and they were actually just healing him.
Interesting.
So there's a big theme of that, of people having experiences, not really knowing what to make of them, and then having to fill in the gaps. And I think it's definitely our instinct, and we'd prefer for these experiences to be positive. So I don't know if that's a psychological like protection, that we all do, or that's Fire in the Sky is a movie that was made about that. And a lot of what's in that movie is accurate, but then some is not exactly about the actual, once he's in the craft, it gets a little bit extra cinematic.
Sure.
As you can expect. But yeah, that's kind of, we got into actually like the dark side, like right away.
Oh yeah. We don't screw around here. We're like, let's get the meat of it.
So how many different types of aliens are there? I've heard theories. There's multiple kinds, isn't there?
Yeah. So if I said like I knew for sure there were 32 species and they were this and this and that, you guys could just be like, UFOJane is full of how could she know these things? So, because I'm not part of these secret forces that the government, puts together, I have to speculate and research just like anybody else.
Which, side note, the government recently admitted that there are UFOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crazy. They're like, by the way, middle pandemic, there's UFOs. Anyway, let's talk about how we can alleviate the pressures on society right now. It's like, wow.
The timing of that. Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, go on.
No. I mean, it's when I first got into this, that wasn't the case. So it was 2012 when I started a website documenting local sightings. Back then, UFOs didn't exist. They weren't real. Government wasn't concerned about them. There was no chance of alien life. There was no real theories that alien life could be visiting. And in 2017, December, the New York Times actually released 3 videos showing UFOs that declassified them and then shared statements that members in the government and the intelligence believe UFOs were real, were not man-made, and could indeed be ET, or not other like foreign enemies or other countries or anything like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a wild roller coaster, for those into UFOs. And then, like you said, in 2020, it's now confirmed that UFOs are actively investigated by government secretly. And yes, so a lot has happened since. So of course, back in the day, maybe in 2012 when I first started it, conversations like how many alien species could be there? What are they like? Were really purely theoretical. So you had to be a conspiracy theorist or into that, right? But now we know, okay, actually there are UFOs. They have been, we are studying them. We are curious about them. We're hearing things like, could there be life on Venus? Is there, water on our moon with the surface of the moon that recently came out? So yeah, so it opens up like a big can of worms. Okay, like who's piloting them? So yeah, so to the question, there are a lot of different insiders and folks who've claimed to, have spoken to military or people who would know these things. And so I think I've heard something like over 30 species of aliens. And
who's documenting this?
Yeah, so I will say, so me and other researchers and folks like that have a lot of documentation of these different kind of creatures. So I'll say, well, one that always shows up is the gray. So that's a very common, so for those who don't know, not green guy, not a little green man. That was kind of a sci-fi movie. I haven't really heard that report, but the big gray head with the big black ominous looking eyes, usually, small kind of split mouth. But they've been reported as being tall, as being short, usually short, but there seems to be a variety of the grays. And there are
Hmm.
even people who have theories that the grays may not be purely biological, that they could actually be part android or something like that,
Hmm.
Cool.
and that there are other species of aliens, maybe more humanoid looking. The scarier ones that get talked about are the reptilians.
Ooh.
And fortunately, I have only, I think, covered like one of those like over the years. So yeah, I
Uh-huh.
mean, there's people who they'll say that there's the tall Nordics, or like there's all. So I mean, if you get bored and anybody wants to go down the rabbit hole and just search different types of aliens,
There's a lot. There's
I
30, you said. That's like,
yeah, so there's plenty. I have some files here, supposedly leaked files that show like a lot of different types of aliens. So it's, until the government though says, okay, yes, those files are right and we're going to declassify it, it remains a classified topic. It remains a covered up topic.
yeah.
Yeah.
So even though there are technically videos and photos that have surfaced of aliens, is very small. Because this is a classified topic, it's the government's right and it's their legal duty in a way to say, no, that's not real. No,
Uh-oh. We
Oh.
lost Jane.
Oh no.
okay.
There you go.
Wants to. The aliens know we're talking about them.
Cliffhanger.
They're like,
I
"Dude,
know.
The aliens
right?
got her.
got it."
Stop talking about us.
It's being covered up. Yeah, I mean, I actually have a video
Yeah.
on my YouTube channel where I hypothesize about some of these alien photos and videos from over the years, and could some of them be real or at least representative
Mm-hmm.
of
Mhm.
real
So
evidence?
I feel like as more people who are skeptical are like, oh yeah, the little gray, because they're like so pop culture, the gray alien kind of like representation. Is there a reason why that kind of became like the more popular species? Is it because there are more reports of those kinds of humanoid subtype of alien? Why is
Yeah,
that?
yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if you guys seen the movie Paul, but that's kind of one of the more recent
Oh
ones.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
and
a
that's like
comedy.
that's what we want our aliens
The
to be,
friendly
like a
one.
friendly, gets all the jokes, can drink a beer with you kind of thing. Um, yeah, so I think it really is due to the prevalence of them. So they've just been seen so many times by so many different contactees over the years.
Hmm.
And I guess you could say it started with Roswell. There were reports of gray alien bodies at the 1947. So and then of course there was the sci-fi movie wave, and it really was more about like the little green guys, which almost seemed I don't know if there was a cover up involved. Maybe there was an attempt for us not to pay attention to
My
these grays.
first alien movie was Signs,
Hmm.
and then it was Signs. I was terrified by that one.
Oh
And
yeah.
then like the scene where the alien gets the kid by like on the mouth in the basement, like that still haunts me today.
Or like the cornfield where he's like bigfooting through the
Yeah.
cornfield. I nearly shat myself in the movie theater. I'm like, nope, nope. Um
Yeah.
yeah, so
Great one.
speaking of the government, I actually wanted to ask you
Mhm.
about a big meme last year was people raiding Area 51.
Uh-huh.
And you mentioned before stream that you were a part of that and you actually went and experienced that yourself. What was that like? And what was the whole point of doing that?
Hmm. Yeah, so there was this person, on Facebook. I think just like you and all of us are talking about, we want to know about the truth about UFOs and aliens. So some guy put together this plan to storm Area 51, which is,
I
that's in
love
the
it.
Nevada desert. It is a true top secret government facility. They used to say it didn't exist, and they had to admit that it exists. I don't know how many years ago. So it's I guess it's a nice symbol of the UFO secret.
How do you just outright fake it when people have seen it? Like,
Yeah,
I think about all those people that live around there and are like, "You what? How what do you mean it
yeah,
doesn't
Right.
exist? I
right.
see it."
Yeah, and there were reports of, I mean, Area 51 was leaked, before they
Yeah.
officially admitted it. So you'll see a
Yeah.
pattern of that, where the conspiracy theorists or whatever will say something's real and they'll say it's not. They're like, okay,
Yeah.
actually it is real.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I think it was just kind of, it started out maybe as like a harmless kind of joke, but then all these people, like millions, I think over 1 million people or something, said that they wanted to storm Area 51. Now, of course, that's not, you shouldn't raid a government facility, you shouldn't storm a government facility. So it got everybody a little bit worried. And so actually what ended up happening is there were some kind of counter raiding events that were put together that had a more like peaceful, let's just, maybe we can go out to the Area 51, or the area of Area 51 and all that, but we can be positive and learn and turn it in. So it turned into like a festival,
Wow.
really, in that area. And so I
Yeah.
was actually invited. So there's a filmmaker, ufologist, really, but he's done a lot of stuff, named Jeremy Corbell, who there's a great documentary in Bob Lazar that
Mm-hmm.
people watch,
Heard of
and
that.
Skinwalker that
Yes.
he's
Yeah, this I watched Skinwalker Ranch. That documentary what? That
that's
was
there's been a few different ones on Skinwalker Ranch, with the big one Jeremy did. So it's
yeah.
probably
Mm-hmm.
that one. Yeah, so I knew him, and so he he didn't put together the event, but he was part of something called Area 51 Base Camp. It was just like impromptu, let's just do something different than raiding Area 51, but
Yeah.
let's take
Less
advantage of
violent.
interest. And right. And so he invited me just literally like, when this was happening, do you want to come out on that September 20th and talk to
Yeah.
people about UFOs and stuff? And at first I was like, wow, what if this is dangerous? You know, I've never been to Area 51, but I mean, it only really took me, I think I took a while to call Jeremy back to say yes, but I think right away I was like, of course I'm going to go. So, yeah, so it was once in a lifetime. It was awesome. Like I said, I never been. Some of my friends in this world had been out to Area 51, but it was not at all this violent or dangerous thing at all. So they were prepared. So you were totally allowed to like go and drive up to the gate, take pictures. They had security everywhere, but all of them were just happy. They wanted to talk about sightings and things too. I mean, like you were saying, they're out there. They know that there's stuff in the sky. They know that there's
Yeah.
something going down here at Area
Mm-hmm.
51. So they're not like against the truth either, but they're just there to be, make sure everybody was safe. And yeah, and so it wasn't as big a turnout as that the millions had promised on Facebook,
Yeah.
but it was a really nice gathering of people. There were like different events kind of around, and then just a steady stream of people driving up and down the road. And so yeah, it was awesome. And of course, the sky out there really is just like so big and amazing. And I didn't see anything, but I was definitely looking for things.
Yeah.
Paul Oakenfold is a DJ, and he like performed, and so it was just this
Yeah.
fun group. And then I was saying earlier, so there were, I wasn't the only one invited out. There were some cooler people than me, and one of those cooler people was Dave Foley, who's an actor,
Love Dave
comedian,
Foley.
news radio, all that. Yeah, he's so funny, and so he is really into UFOs. So I guess Jeremy knew this, got him to come out to Area 51
Wow.
to experience it all. So I got to meet him there, and just a lot of really neat people. And then, of course, just, people just interested in UFOs, maybe for the first time
Yeah.
because of all of that. So yeah, it was an awesome time.
There's a few people in chat that's like, yeah, I live here. I live in Hawaii. I live in Nevada. I live in North Dakota. And like, there's definitely some things that I've seen in the sky that like I cannot explain. I was wondering do you know how often sightings occur, or like, and also I would assume that people who live in more rural, less light polluted areas are more prone to see these sightings, because another kind of like look down upon pop thing is like, oh, they're in Texas, they're just crazy out there, of course they're seeing
Right.
all kinds of things in the
Uh-huh.
sky. But I think it has
Kelly
more to
Billy
do
got
with,
me.
right, like it has more to do with like less polluted, light, or
Mhm.
less light pollution, more you
Mhm.
could literally see more stars.
Yes, absolutely. So there's actually, yeah, so absolutely. So it's a little, so the short answer is, I mean, there's sightings happening every single day. And so, I mean, all around the world. So there's, thousands of reports a year. However, most of them really can be explained. Now, that people aren't lying, by the way. I mean, yes, there are hoaxes, there are liars, but I mean, what I'm getting there, I mean, if they're making up something up, they should have come up with something even grander than, a strange light that, just looks weird.
Yeah.
So, but what is happening, there's definitely, like, a lot of misidentifications. Like, if you've ever seen Chinese lanterns, that can look if you hadn't seen Chinese lanterns before and then you were to see those, that can look absolutely incredible, or like aliens are visiting, nighttime parachuters, that's a fun one.
Hmm.
Not common, but it looks crazy. It looks like
Yeah.
these fireballs kinda dancing down. So it's hard because so much of it can be explained, and I can't look into every single case. There are different UFO organizations, literally cannot look into every single case,
Yeah.
but they're happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they have similar traits, like orbs of light. I mean, how you're looking at a UFO? I mean, is it doing something a drone can't do, a plane can't do, a satellite can't do? Have you ruled out things like fireworks or goofy things like nighttime parachuters? So, and we're left over with tons of just intriguing videos of, stationary balls of light that then suddenly move
Hmm.
or shoot up, into the stratosphere or things like that. The common one here, I don't know what folks have, seen in their respective cities. It definitely varies, but a really common one are the triangle craft.
I've heard
So
of
the
those. Yeah.
silent triangle craft that will just kind of hover there ominously, and like I said, then do these erratic moves. And
Isn't that
those are really in Texas.
Isn't that what was? I mean, there's like one famous recent footage of like these Air Force people that were just going on a routine kind of like scheduled flight. And I think it was like government. I don't exactly remember the
Mhm.
details, but they were part of the government. Yeah.
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 Yes.
And they found like these strange, like triangular black kind of orby, not orby, but like really silent, weirdly moving triangles next to their crafts.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I know the exact case you're talking about, but so you probably should send that to me. It sounds like you should be a UFO investigator. Yeah, well, but there are so many. So there are. I mean, there are so many. I mean, especially if the triangles, there's so many videos and photos. And some explanations are, well, could these be top secret military craft? And sure, they could be. It's like, how long have we had them? Where did we get this technology from? Those questions. The Phoenix Lights incident in 1997, that was one of the more famous incidents that has not been debunked. And that was like a V-shaped, formation of light. So it very well could have been a very massive ship with lights. And I believe the mayor at the time, or the governor at the time, mayor, I think, laughed it off on TV. And then later said,
Nervously.
actually, yeah, and actually said that was a joke, like that it was real. And I mean, essentially, that was part
Yeah.
of the cover up to laugh it
Wow.
off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're seen all the time, but because it's classified, because there is so much misidentification,
Yeah.
it's hard to really quantify.
Mm.
So what was the thing that first got you into UFOs? Did you like see a UFO yourself and that was your like, okay, I got to figure out what this is? Or
Initiation.
yeah, what was your UFO initiation?
Mhm. Yeah, I think everybody who's into this has probably some story, right? So
Yeah.
I was not like a lot of people that are in, my field. Yeah, they've seen things, or maybe their family did. Or maybe they have some military family. So they've heard some things growing up. That's pretty common. For me, it wasn't that at all. Like I was always curious about things. Like I've got E.T. doll, still my favorite movie, E.T. from growing up. So I
I
was
like
always
your
curious.
that looked like mushrooms, but they're spacecrafts, right? And pizza. I see pizza and an alien.
Yeah,
Heck
just check
yeah.
out the rest of my house and find all kinds of alien stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, so I was always curious about it and open-minded, I think. But it was love. It was love that got me into UFOs. So I started dating because 2007 met my now husband, and he was obsessed. Well, not obsessed with UFOs. He was obsessed with many things, to his credit, Star Wars too, and but he knew all about all the UFO books and cases and everything, and he had concluded at that point in time they were real. So I just, like osmosis, just discovered just cases, online, like going down the YouTube rabbit hole.
Sure.
And I had a journalism degree, and so I was in marketing, but I was doing like a lot of writing and trying to, I don't know, do something with that skill set, I guess. And so when I found out that UFOs were real, and not only that, but they were being seen in my own home state all the time, and that there wasn't like CNN wasn't reporting on them, even local news wasn't reporting on them, I just started a website to document it. So
Yeah.
yeah, the rest is history.
Dang.
Sick.
So have you seen a UFO or an alien yet? Like outside of the stuff, but in person with all of
Mhm.
your endeavors now?
Yeah. It's so funny. It's like I'm always like investigating things that come on my screen. So I'm like, I'm not
Yeah.
looking up enough. It's so funny, but I'm always wanting to see something. I
Yeah.
think so I did. I saw a UFO one time. And well, I mean, I've seen things I can't explain
And when was
before, but
this?
yeah. So and here's what's funny. I don't even remember exactly when it was, but it was, and this is the irony of it, because I had a full UFO website. My instinct should have been to get my phone out, start filming, talking about what
Yeah.
I'm seeing, talk to other people in the area if they were seeing it, do an article, do a whole thing. That's
Yeah.
not what I did though. All that I did was like look at it, like
Yeah.
stunned kind of, and immediately also start debunking it in my own head. Like, well, that could be that, or that could be that. And then that was it. And I don't
Yeah.
even know if it was New Year's Eve or 4th of July, but it was a night that we were outside looking at fireworks. And so I was like, well, so could I, but it wasn't fireworks.
Yeah.
It was a triangle UFO. So the classic one I'm always
Mhm.
seeing, and I didn't report about it or anything. And so that just goes to show what
Mhm.
a witness people, when they do see things, there's this myth like, oh, if aliens are here, well, why aren't they like landing on the White House lawn and waving to us, or why aren't we seeing more videos and more photos?
Mhm.
um, well, it's actually quite hard to photograph and video things in the sky,
Right.
especially
Mhm.
if you don't want to be seen at night. But also, I don't think everybody's just immediately busting out a camera or like drawing what they've seen or reporting it. I think your
Yeah.
instinct is really just to look at it.
Well, and
You know?
debunk it. Like that would be my
Yes,
first instinct too, is to be like, this isn't real. What are all of these things that this could be? Because that can't be real. No, there's no way.
I feel like those are good
And
that's
investigative kind of skills to have. I mean, you don't want to believe
yeah.
everything that you see. And I feel like you're kind of training yourself to read between the lines when people kind of report to you. And it's like, well, like you said, I was watching fireworks. It could have been a firework. It could have been like a glare or
Mhm.
something weird that you were seeing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really interesting where at the end of the day, you're like,
Mhm.
it wasn't all the things that I thought it was, and I still can't explain
Yeah,
it.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I still really can't. So
Yeah.
just like, is what it It is. If I could go back in time and have recorded it, I totally would. And I tell people to do that. Obviously, if you see something, record it. Try to get other things in the frame so that
Yeah.
you
There's
can tell like how
context.
big it is. Yeah. And then if you don't get a photo of it, you can draw it out. Write what you saw, draw
Mhm.
what you saw. While it's fresh on your memory, and you can let me know that there's other outlets out there like MUFON and New Fork and things like that. And of course, even now the government is saying UFOs are real, and so there might be some more avenues
Yeah. So
in the
let's
future.
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
The Pentagon released an official statement saying, and like in the middle of the pandemic where everyone was kind of worrying about
Yeah.
other things, which I feel
I know.
like was very good PR. They're like, hey, let's just slip this information out so people don't make a big deal about it because,
Oh.
Can you talk to us more about that? I don't know much
Mhm.
about, first of all, I don't know much about what happens at Area 51. Someone in chat was asking, like, what happens there? But number two, like
Yeah.
the Pentagon apparently is involved in some sort of
Mhm.
paranormal activity as well. Like, I mean, at least officially releasing a statement.
Mhm. Yeah. So, like, to the first question, what happens at Area 51? I mean, again, unless you're working there at Area 51, you're not supposed to know. So
Yeah.
none of us really know, right? But it is a confirmed government facility. So, in theory, they, um, craft test, technology testing, top secret technology, things like that. Which is, we've got a big military, and we've got foreign threats and things like that. Now we've got a space force, so you can kind of think of the types of things that might go down at these facilities. But Area 51 is not the only secret place, or place where, let's say, something like reverse engineered alien technology could be. So that, there's a man named Bob Lazar. Some people, think that he's making things up, but a lot of his testimony has only been verified, and increasingly so over the years. So he was one of those people telling us about Area 51 before it was publicly known. And he claims to have worked at a site, not the main Area 51 facility, but this S1 site. And he still speculates about really what was going down, because he understand this is compartmentalized, information that you're given. But he was essentially briefed that, that they had UFOs, they had ships, and the aliens had been visiting and interacting with Earth for, since ancient times, and they were trying to figure out how the craft worked. So his job was to try to figure out how this anti-gravity propulsion system worked, so that we
Wow.
could harness it. And he says that they never really figured it out. So yeah, so that's Area 51, and why that Storm Area 51 movement. Actually, it was inspired, I think that's right. It was inspired, I think, by the Bob Lazar documentary.
Wow.
Oh. That's
Mhm.
it makes sense. I live by a river, and it has been plenty of nights where my, like, entire house will shake, and there's a military base that's kind of nearby, and so there'll be nights where it'll be like our entire house will shake,
Oh,
and it'll
wow.
scare the shit out of me. Or, like, we'll look and there'll be, like, really big airplanes that are flying over in the middle of the night that aren't just, like,
Yeah.
planes way, way up. And so I've talked to my parents about it too, and have been like, I'm pretty sure there's secret, like, government airplanes of some kind that are
Yeah.
being flown over my house at night. And it just, because I mean, if they're deconstructing, like, UFOs, and they're trying to figure out how their technology works, they got to test fly them somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
A cool story. Yeah. No, I mean, totally. And I mean, the question too, could there be alien bodies as well? And so I will say though, it's not just Area 51. So there are a lot of sites where, so for example, after Roswell,
Mhm.
debris from that crash was actually flown to a few different bases, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and then I think it also ended up in Texas as well, at a
Mm.
base here. So, who's really, how can we really know, where? I mean, there's a lot of
Mhm.
stuff going on. A lot of places, you're not allowed to go
Yeah.
or walk around, in the country. So yeah, so that's the Area 51 question. And then I think also just asking about like, okay, what's the current, like, what has the government said, recently? Which is, I do have a quote pulled up here. So I'll say, the timeline really started December 2017, actually pre 2017. So we do not need to get political here, but it is relevant here. Hillary Clinton actually did have UFOs as part of her campaign.
Really?
Yeah, so she talked about it many times.
The Clintons are really into UFOs.
They
Are
are.
they?
Wasn't it Bill? Yeah, wasn't it Bill that went on like the Tonight Show and was like, I'm gonna unlock UFO stuff or I'm gonna look into it or whatever when he was president?
Yeah, that
Yep,
went really
and
well. He unlocked some other shit, but definitely.
yeah, we didn't end up getting anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely this pattern of, there's been many presidents and have spoken about this. It's usually joking about it. But when Hillary Clinton ran, she actually was like, okay, well, I think her quote was, we'll get to the bottom of it. So it started kind of then.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then so a year later after that election, December 2017, New York Times comes out with 3 UFO videos that had all the evidence, radar, video, everything, credible Navy testimony, and then the backing of the government intelligence saying, yes, these are real UFOs. We don't know their origin. And then fast forward, and now since then, of course, even the who's to know who the current president is right now, but made actual statement about UFOs, said that he had been briefed on them. He'd check on it. He talked about Roswell being interesting, all that. So wild. But then also the New York Times then followed up in 2020 with, this is a quote from it. Eric W. Davis, an astrophysicist who worked as a subcontractor and then a consultant for the Pentagon UFO program since 2007. So there's been a program going on this whole time, Pentagon.
Wow.
Said he gave a classified briefing to a Defense Department agency as recently as March about retrievals from off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. So that came out, in addition to the Pentagon saying UFOs are real and they're investigating them. So it's definitely a different conversation now, when you talk about UFOs and aliens than it used to be. Very different conversation.
Yeah, it seems like just in a matter of 4 years, it went from like, it's almost like parents who are like, don't want to talk to you about sex or something, like, oh, well, when you're older, like,
Yeah.
and the government is the parent, and then like society is
When
like,
you're ready.
and it's
Yeah.
like 2020, like a lot of people might die this year. We might as well tell them aliens.
Might as well tell. I have said if there is any year for aliens to invade our planet, it's 2020.
Yeah.
Like this is the year for it to happen.
Yeah.
Well, not to spook you out, but in my community field world, very, very early on, that was always the date that apparently disclosure was going to happen.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, again,
What?
there's different files and stuff that you can't really prove.
Why is
And they're
that
hard to
though?
Well, so if UFOs are real and they've been knowing about them for a while, and it eventually is going to come out, I guess it makes sense that you would have some kind of plan of how to disclose this to the public. Like, it's so funny that you said that. My son recently was asking about the birds and the bees, and I started to explain it to him, and then he just changed subject. And then a few weeks later, he asked me again, and he actually listened to my answer. So it's just like that. Yes, I could see that's definitely the more, I guess you could say, empathetic view of why it's been a secret. It's like if people are familiar with the War of the Worlds, I don't know what year that was, but
yeah.
Wells, just stated the War of the Worlds. He narrated that story on air on radio, but
And
people
everyone
thought it
freaked
was
out.
real, and
Yeah.
they freaked out. Apparently, people committed suicide, is what I've heard. So there was some really
It was.
horrible.
Yeah, my dad's talked about it before because my dad's fairly old. I think he might have lived through that time, but yeah, they like everyone thought it was real and were like going down in their bunkers and were like
Uh-huh.
rioting and things like that because it was read so well that they thought it was actually happening. It was like
Mhm.
a radio show.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Mhm. So I
You
suppose, yeah, if they have alien evidence and that happens, that can't be a good example as to like what humanity would do if they found out at that period of
Mhm.
time.
They're like, we tried
Yeah.
it in the 70s, did not go well.
Yeah. So this time around, we'll just say, okay, there could be life on Venus, there could be life on Mars. Hey, maybe there's life everywhere. Oh, and also there are UFOs. So it kind of,
Why
yeah,
you've you've mentioned Venus a couple times. Why
yeah.
Venus? What
So
like
that's
are there
yeah.
multiple theories about Venus?
I think it's just because it's the more recent one. So they found that there's this, what's it called? I think I have it here. Like I'm gonna say it wrong. It's like phosphine or phospholine. It's some chemical that they found in the clouds of Venus.
Hmm.
But it's produced by organic activity. So like it's like industrial here on planet Earth.
Interesting.
Right. So that indicates there actually could be life on Venus.
Yeah.
Up until then, NASA and serious scientists would say life on Venus is impossible. But if you
Mhm.
actually go look back to some of the there's reports from 2012 prior to there possibly being life there. So it's just
Yeah.
you want to add that to the Mars, stuff we've been hearing lately, and it's just you just got to add in maybe there's life on Jupiter's moon, and then you're suggesting there could be life on like all the planets in
Yeah.
our solar system, and think about all the other solar systems out there.
Yeah.
That was
So
always my
add
thing.
that real
I was
quick.
like, the universe is too big. That's really small-minded for you to think that there's no life anywhere else in the universe. Like, come
Mhm.
on.
But I think people
Yeah.
also
No.
confuse life with like sentient, like,
Mhm.
humanoid beings. And life could just mean microorganisms or bugs or like really anything. And
Mhm. It
yeah,
could.
what Megan was saying, I mean, like it's very small minded of us to think that we're the only living, breathing organisms that exist. But that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that something this small isn't considered an alien, or
Yeah.
if there's like
And isn't just
bacteria
as
elsewhere.
amazing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just as amazing, really. And think about it, like there's so many things we haven't still discovered on our own planet. Like we're
Mhm.
discovering new animals and things all the time, and like even large primates, things like that still get discovered.
Yep.
So
Australia
yeah, so why
just
would that be?
Australia
Yeah.
just discovered 2 new mammals. And
Mhm.
like I mean, if you thought the biodiversity there was nuts, it's like, well, we just found more and we've never seen them until now. Like that just blows my
Mhm.
mind. So
What
That's
isn't
funny.
there it's like we've searched isn't it we know less about the bottom of the ocean than we do about the space or something like that or about like our solar system? Isn't that what I've heard before, I think?
I've heard
Like
that. Mhm.
and that's pretty crazy too that yeah, we don't know about yeah. I don't know.
Oh, and get
It's
this, a lot of
yeah.
UFOs come out of the ocean. So,
What?
really,
not a lot, I don't know if to say it a lot. There are actually one of the I don't know which one of those Navy sightings was associated with, I don't wanna say it wrong, but there's
Yeah.
definitely been documented cases of UFOs coming out of the water. Um, these are often seen by, Navy and things like that. So there's a whole other yeah, so if you think about, like, are we looking up too much?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'd imagine as an
Yeah,
I
alien,
mean, it makes sense.
yeah,
And I mean, I think about if we were trying to go explore another planet, we'd be doing the same thing. Like we'd be
incognito. Yeah.
hiding ourselves, yeah, hiding in the oceans and in the skies. Like we would be doing the exact same thing.
mhm.
We're we're just mad that we're not the smarter ones in this
Yeah.
scenario.
Well, I doubt
Yeah, yeah.
aliens want to come to the middle of like Houston, Texas, in like downtown, be like, "Hey guys, we exist." Like, if I were an alien, I would, and I was trying to study a species, I would definitely dive into the middle of the ocean where there were no cities, and then just navigate like submarine
Mhm.
style. you
Yeah,
know?
just kind of blend in.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and I like to say too, to the idea of there being sentient life out there. So let's say, you all three of us are just, miracles, which, I totally believe. Like, it's amazing. It really is. Let's say we've won the lotto. But there's still so much space out there that there's other lotto wins.
Mhm.
There's you only need, so much of that, and then, for them to kind of get to an advanced place where they're mastered space and time travel. Or I said time travel, but it's space and time. So
Yeah.
that's key. So,
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, "Oh, how could an object go that far in space, in organic matter?" But that's actually a lot of how we think these craft could be powered, that they're manipulating space time. So they're
Mhm.
manipulating like the gravity field. But yeah, you only need like one or two advanced humanoid species or to have visited here really at least just one time. They only have to have visited one time and affected our planet for that to be like the biggest news ever.
Right.
Mhm.
So I want to kind of talk more about Bob Lazar and like his experiences. If I'm getting this correct, he pretty much worked for the government, like adjacent to Area 51 is what you said at S1.
Yeah.
What are some
Mhm.
of the things that are leading people to believe? Because I've heard this from more than one like friend of mine who has listened to like the Joe Rogan podcast, who's like, yeah, I
Right.
didn't really believe. Like I was always kind of skeptical, but then like Bob Lazar came on, and I'm like that was a creepy podcast, and I believe now.
Mhm. Yeah, that podcast was a great. It was really good that that happened. For Lazar, assuming he's telling the truth. Yeah, because I think a lot of people saw that and felt the same way. So I think it's just his demeanor, and uh, I'm not a body language expert. I don't have a lie detector, but I think he just genuinely comes off as genuine, and his story hasn't changed, and it's a very complex one. So I think that's a big one. It's been the same from the beginning, and so many elements of his story have now, like, again, like Area 51 being revealed. He also talked about element 115, um and like basically an element that's now on, I think it's now on the periodic table, that was like rumored to exist before. There's a little more to it than that, what he was talking about, what Lazar was talking about. Um, but yeah, there's just different things like that. And of course, now, I mean, think of how more credible he is now in 2020, when the government's admitting they were investigating UFOs secretly. So when Bob Lazar was first coming out about all this, government was saying UFOs aren't even real. So nothing that you're saying could be real. Now, though, I think it changes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely
I'm
wild.
like I'm slightly terrified by it, but it's also so interesting.
Mhm. It's like you kinda go back and forth. So, you get into it and you're curious, and then it's like, "Oh, that's kind of scary," like we were talking earlier, like the idea of abductions and
Mhm.
things like that. It's one thing to see a light up in the sky or imagine like a Star Wars, situation up there, like that's fun. But when you
Yeah.
you think about how they could be spying on us or abducting us, it gets, or
What
what
is
are
the
their intentions?
or
With
the what was the Skinwalker Ranch, right?
Mhm.
Skinwalker Ranch? Like that one? Okay, how from your professional opinion, how much of that is like exaggerated for
Yeah.
sake of entertainment? Cuz like I feel like most like especially televised things, like there's a lot of the stuff that needs to be exaggerated for like
Mhm.
entertainment sake,
Mhm.
so it's understandable. But how much of that is like that's like okay, that was a little bit too much.
Yeah. Yeah, well, especially because there's a show too, a Skinwalker
Yeah.
Ranch show too. So definitely, if anything's a TV show, it's serialized. They're gonna need that,
Mhm.
like that twist, that turn, like in every episode. Ancient Aliens is another like great example of that. Of just, it can get silly sometimes, but like the core of it is real. So I mean, I
Yeah.
think the core of it, in the sense that people who have really had all kinds of experiences there. I don't think they're lying about it. Uh, they're I this so Travis Taylor is this physicist. He's also in curious at least about UFOs. He's considered
Mhm.
more skeptical, but he's obviously studying this and he's into it. And he did like a press conference and I was able to ask him some questions and he confirmed that there's definitely like just anomalies. There's just
Mhm.
anomalies happening at Skinwalker Ranch with, all his fancy tools and things that he uses just purely unbiased, science,
Yeah.
a lot of jargon I probably don't understand. So there've been a lot of like I think credible people who have measured things like there's just anomalies here. And
Mhm.
then you have to compare that though with testimonies, which just they're innate. I mean, they're testimonies. So I
Even like the video of the calf that was torn apart,
yes,
like,
cattle mutilated.
'cause so anybody that doesn't know anything about Skinwalker Ranch,
Mhm.
I mean, do you wanna go into a little bit? Because 'Cause I'll just give a synopsis of the
No,
movie.
you go for it. You might know Skinwalker
Uh,
Ranch better than me. Yeah, go for it.
so there's a movie on I think it's on Hulu, called
Uh,
Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, and it's a place I don't know where it is, but it's this area where there has been just crazy amounts of UFO sightings. There was at periods of time, like I think at one periods of time, there was a government like group of people that were testing things, and then
Yes,
they left, and then there was an independent group of scientists that
exactly.
went in and were
Mhm.
studying all of the anomalies that were going on because it wasn't just like weird alien anomalies. There were also some sort of physics things that were
Yes,
going on, like
yeah,
scientific
like with the
difference.
magnetism and yeah.
Yeah, with magnetism and stuff that were
Mhm,
just really weird that they couldn't get to the bottom to of.
mhm.
And one of the things that happened was there was a family that lived in the area and they had calves and they were going around and they were tagging the calves and they tagged one of them and then they went to go tag another and their dog looked back at the one like a few hundred yards away now at this point and started barking and then he realized that I think he saw the mother like circling it and like freaking out and so they went back to go look at the calf and it was like completely butchered. There was no meat on the bones whatsoever
Wow.
and there was zero blood around it. And this was a time when there was a group of scientists that were there that were checking out all of the crazy things that were happening.
Mhm.
So they called the scientists to come look at it. And they have video of them walking over to this calf with that looks perfectly butchered. Like it was taken somewhere and butchered and it had the ear cut off of it too, which was really weird and like it was placed like perfectly in the middle of the field with zero blood around it and they had no explanation as
Yeah,
to how it was there or how they would have even faked that like what do you how do you it's
and why?
crazy. Yeah,
Why?
and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know, and they've seen there was some crazy stories that were in there. There were a story where the one guy said that he saw a wolf that was, like, the size of, like, a dire wolf show up and j like,
Badass.
just was, like, really nice to him, and then it turned around and tried to eat, like, one of the horses or something like that, and he shot it with multiple different bullets, and it didn't leave, and then like, finally, he shot it again a couple times, and it, like, scoffed at him and like sauntered away across the field was like fine okay I'm done with you.
Yeah.
He was like it was the craziest thing so
Yeah, it's extra crazy at Skinwalker
mhm.
Ranch. It's like every phenomenon is like there, and that doesn't really
Yeah,
make sense, right? Because it's like, well, if aliens are just these off-world creatures that are visiting, like, why are people seeing aliens, but then also these other paranormal things? It's
mhm,
very weird. So I tend to think there's something happening to the brains of people that are there. And I don't mean like they're not seeing
Huh.
what they're seeing.
oh
There could be some kind of something going on there. Maybe
yeah
there are aliens there
Like some
for
sort of
that
like
reason.
psychedelic like
Yes.
trip or
That
something
that
that's being
yes,
induced.
yes.
Interesting.
There's even a lot of
interesting
abduction experiences and this is, I'm not saying they're not real at all.
Yeah.
But they tend to happen in dreamlike states and then remembered later. And there's often not this physical evidence, but the experience is vivid and powerful and real and similar to what other people are experiencing. So there's definitely something even stranger than the idea of just an alien on another planet, like flying here. Like there's something else going on. So it's hard to like verify any of those like wilder testimonies from Skinwalker Ranch. That's like a cattle mutilation. I mean, that's a real phenomenon that they have documented there and around the world. So that's again
That's
like
a common thing. Like
Yeah,
that's
why?
like a thing.
it's a darker aspect of all this.
So
yes,
like
cattle mutilation.
Cattle mutilation, that's kind of a common occurrence in sightings, but also like crop circles. What's up with
Yes. And like
like
crop circles are like the nicer.
right?
They're like the crop circles are pretty and
It's
you
like
know,
they're
maybe
graffiti
they
tagged.
debunked?
They're like, we were here.
Weren't they all complete? Yeah, weren't they all completely debunked? I feel like I read an article. I don't know how true it was that said like it was the guys that were like, yeah, we did all the first crop circles, however long ago.
Yeah, so you know how you signs? So that
Yeah.
crop circle that's on the movie cover of Signs, I'm pretty sure that's either similar or the same as a real famous crop circle. And it's might be the same one that's on the Led Zeppelin album cover. So I wouldn't say that it's just like anything, right? Like there have been crop circles there are ways to make, I guess, crop circles, and they have confirmed some of those. But I'm not sure that they've ever proven some of the more amazing crop circles. Like there's so many, and they also tend to happen in the UK. I wonder sometimes if they're happening in other places, but we're just not hearing about it in the news. Because I know like the cattle mutilation phenomenon's like that, where you don't hear about it in the news, but it is happening.
Yeah.
So I've interviewed a man, the late Michael Glickman, who was a crop circle expert, and you know he said yes, some were explained, but others have never been, and that I mean they don't stay forever. So really, unless you're going out to the crop circle when it's happening, which you know I've never been in one, but I've heard like the real crop circles feel entirely different than the man-made ones. Like it feels different apparently, like when you go into them, and I guess you know everything's laid down in a more impossible way. But it's hard to say. I haven't been in one. I would like to, but as with all of these things, there definitely is an effort. So I don't know if it's true for crop circles, but like with all the famous now documented UFO cases, every single one that we now know happened, with the exception of the Navy videos, there was an attempt to cover them all up. So like, you know, Phoenix Lights we were talking about, the mayor came on and said and joked about it. Roswell, they said was a weather balloon, you know, wasn't a weather balloon. There's a famous incident in the UK called the Rendlesham UFO incident, and there's a BBC article still you can read saying that was a hoax, and it wasn't. So it's tricky because it's like if it was a real crop circle and for some reason somebody didn't want somebody to know it, it's not that difficult to get somebody to go on TV and say, I did it and here's how I did it. So but yeah, crop circles, I'm not, because of I haven't been in one, or don't seem to be any happening in Texas. I don't really know.
I didn't know they were still that common. Like that.
Yeah, every summer. So it's seasonal. So every summer, you typically in the UK is a bunch of them. And so you could say, well, clearly this is fake. Like this is
someone's summer hobby.
There's only crops in the summer. Like you can't make a crop circle in the middle of the winter time.
Right. There's definitely like this kind of touristy aspect of it too, you know, and farmers I guess kind of have a love-hate relationship with these things. But yeah, they do have, unless you're following it, you know, it's definitely not going to show up, you know, on the news.
Yeah. So earlier on in the podcast, we were talking about, jokingly talking about like being impregnated by aliens and all that. What are some of the more disturbing stories and testimonials that you've heard from people that you were like, this is bone chilling?
Yeah. So I tend to get, I mean, I've gotten, reports of the grays and things like that, but I personally tend to get, fortunately, like less frightening stories of just, weird craft and stuff in the sky. But there's a long list of like UFO crashes, like slash abductions. We talked about the Travis Walton incident before. That's a pretty amazing one. Um, Now this is a little okay. So this isn't quite an abduction experience, but it's one I've just researched a lot. That's made me think a lot, and it's kind of a little frightening. Which was this cat. It was called the Cash Landrum incident. So that was in East Texas in 1980. And so there's this woman, and then it's Betty Cash and Vicky Landrum, and then I think Vicky's grandson. So they're driving in the piney woods of East Texas. So I've been over there, and they spot a diamond shaped craft just like hovering there stationary in the sky, and they go up to it, and then helicopters.
Every time you say that, I feel like it's like a horror movie and you're yelling at it like,
Don't
don't do it!
do it!
Don't do
I would have
it!
tried not to do it. If I had been there when Travis Walton, had done that, I would have been in the truck saying, "Come back in the truck now."
You're an
Whatever
idiot.
Or you could go missing.
You're the one in the horror movie that dies.
I hate to be that person, but there's a lot of people in my field that, like, we were talking about UFO summoning a little bit before we went live. There are people who have positive feelings about UFOs and try to get them to come and stuff, but I actually do not encourage that based on the different reports and like testimonies, I've heard of. So in this case, they weren't abducted, well, as far as we know. But so they see this stationary hovering like diamond shaped craft, and then like 30 plus helicopters swarm it. And so then they go back to their car, but their car's like hot to the touch. They ended up experiencing radiation symptoms. So they were treated like what's the word? Blisters, skin blisters. That was definitely treated. I think Becky Cash had the most symptoms, and they sued the government because they were like, "You guys knew what this was, and we pay our medical bills." Government said, "No, we don't. This had nothing to do with us." Wow. So that case always really sticks out to me because I imagine too if that like would happen now, would they have a case? Because
they've admitted.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of those old cases where it's kind of interesting, like the legal implication. But as far as like scary abduction experiences, Travis Walton's definitely on there. Recommend People See Fire in the Sky. There's another great book called Communion, book and movie, kind of cheesy movie, but it's great, with Christopher Walken, called Communion. And that's a pretty creepy movie. And that the contactee is Whitley Strieber, and he, like Travis Walton, now has kind of this positive take on it. But that's a very you guys may have even seen the alien from Communion. It's like this. Like your gray alien with the big black scary eyes. Yeah, that's a good one, but it's just these grays. They're creepy.
Yeah.
So are they the ones that tend to make like the most content, or the most content?
Right?
They're influencers.
They're definitely driving a lot of my content. For sure. Yeah. So it's that tip. So again, like, I know I'm not saying specific cases, but there's the Allagash River abduction. There's the Barney and Betty Hill abductions. There's a bunch of different ones.
The Hills.
Yeah. And it's that idea of like these gray aliens and being in like a sterile, like medical, like spaceship room and being poked at and messed with. And yes, there are the theories that they could be yes, abducting like women in particular for their babies, or hybridization and things like that are some of the theories. But what happens to a human being when we have a traumatic experience? We block it out, right?
Yeah.
So that's just the nature of an alien abduction. It's that traumatic. Either the alien, it's like Men in Black, right? Where they have like
Mhm.
those little things and like, okay, this did not happen, or a
Yeah.
combination, or you're just your natural body's protecting you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're left with just a lot of just memories, from contactees. And
I
yeah,
mean, if they're smart enough to figure out how to travel to us, I can imagine that they're smart enough to figure out how to at least trigger that part of our brain that blocks out experiences. And so even if it isn't that traumatic, like some of those people remember, they can at least trigger that, sensation to make the brain just block it all out and then think it
yeah,
is, in some manner, like it's I can imagine.
Also,
Why not? They're
most people are
smart enough
like,
to time travel.
yeah.
Like,
A lot of people say that they're in like a dreamlike state, right? And when you're kind of lucid like that, or when you're dreaming, usually before you wake up, your body purges. Like most people don't remember their dreams, especially if it's like a deep sleep. So I'm
Mhm.
wondering if that would, I mean, if abductions were the case to be real, I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's missing time. So typically, it's like they'll sometimes remember seeing the UFO, and then like they don't know what happened, and then
right.
they're like back at their place, like, and time has passed, and then they'll have like nightmares, or like go into hypno regression and things like that, and then we'll all like come back to them. And that, I don't know why that I think that's believable, because we see that with other just normal human experiences, traumatic experiences that might like happen during childhood or whatever. We see that happen. So yeah, I mean, why wouldn't the aliens know how to like trigger that? Another like normal human phenomenon is sleep paralysis. And so that, I guess we're all kind of technically in sleep paralysis, like, when we're sleeping. But a lot of people with abduction experiences will experience sleep paralysis, where they're aware of what's going on, but they can't
Mhm.
move. And yeah, so why couldn't that be induced? If
Mhm.
that's just something kind of in us anyways, it'd probably be pretty easy just to turn it on.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if you're smart enough to time travel,
Look,
I
if
think you're smart enough to figure out how to manipulate the human brain.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
psychopaths do it all the time. Like, it's not
Mhm.
if
it's
anti-gravity
doesn't seem that far-fetched.
aircrafts or like material exists, I'm sure you could do all
Mhm.
sorts of crazy mental tricks.
It's gotta be
Mhm.
the good part of it is, I know we're talking about a lot of creepy stuff, but I do
Mhm.
like to because if this is real, we will all want to have as intelligent brains and going into it. And what fear can do is it can stress you out, and
Yeah.
make you not think very, intelligently, right? So I do think this phenomenon appears to be real, and there appears to be more and more news coming out of it. So I would first of all tell people not to be afraid, because literally nothing's changed. So if all this is true, this is the existence, human existence, that it's always been. It's been interacting with you potentially your whole life, maybe, or abductees at least, maybe not us, or maybe right. Really, there's nothing new to be afraid of. There's no new threat, or alien or anything. So that's one thing. Also, though, we have all these stories from abductees because they live to tell about it, and they're okay physically. Again, a lot of them have like positive experiences, so they're also, maybe the aliens are okay too, with
Mhm.
at least with that information coming out and being shared, and that doesn't seem threatening to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me, if this really was a threat, we wouldn't hear from the abductees ever again. We wouldn't have all these accounts to talk about. So there's definitely that part too, which makes me a little hopeful. That said, I still don't recommend, unless you're doing it for like a journalistic reason, or you've got lots of, it's like you've got a plan. Don't just go summoning UFOs. Like, don't go out to the woods like all by yourself and summon a
So
UFO. Or if
what does that even
you
mean?
can get way.
Yeah,
Oh,
what
yeah,
is
it's
UFO
like,
summoning?
I've never heard of it
Is it
before.
using UFO talk. Anybody is welcome. I like to invite new people to UFO Twitter, the hashtag UFO
Okay.
Twitter. We need to just we need to get new opinions and voices and thoughts into this, is my feeling. But something kind of in my world that's been popular is this whole idea of summoning UFOs. So going out and I guess, come to us, let us see you, kind of thing. And people apparently do it and they see lights. I want to say even Demi Lovato recently spoke about one of these events and seeing something. So I think that's interesting. I think it's something that should be documented. I've thought about how I could maybe do that, for our
Yeah.
to learn, but it makes me very nervous though. That idea, just because we don't know what we're dealing with, and
Mhm.
there are so many kind of scary, frightening cases. I don't think I would, recommend other people have. So
Ooh, what are some of the cases that you've heard of? They don't necessarily have to be scary, but, some of, the
well,
more
as far as
memorable
UFO
ones.
summoning, or I mean, I think just general, it doesn't seem to be a fun experience whenever you go into a UFO. It just generally,
Mhm.
it's not I mean, I say that, but there are people who claim to be psychic or remote viewers or things like that, and
Interesting.
they'll be like, "Oh, I astral projected to these other beautiful paradise planets, and I'm that kind of thing." So there's definitely that
Does
kind
that makes me think, that's where the species comes into play? Maybe it's a species of alien has a different sort of abducting or
of
contact in some manner, you know?
not.
Yeah,
There's so many different, even us, just as human beings, just think of how much diversity,
For
and
yeah.
sure.
all countries and governments and groups of people, and we all study things even differently, from country to country, or whatever.
Perspectives are
Yeah, it's so
different between people as well, We don't all believe in the same things.
that's a
Yeah.
really important point.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you're seeing something that your mind and I really can't explain based on your given information, your mind kind of fills in the gaps. So
Mhm.
it kind
Or
of
you
makes
dismiss
things
it.
up.
People just straight up will dismiss it.
Exactly. It's kind of like the white gold dress, right? Is it gold or is it white? Do you guys remember that one? That was
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was
yeah.
a green and gold. Was it white
Or
or
was it green or gold? Was it
one of
gold or
those?
what was it? Yeah.
One of those.
I think I
Interesting
saw it
question.
the
I'm curious to know, do you deal with people who are super religious, who versus alien? I feel like it's two very different worlds to have to comprehend for someone who's very devout in their religion.
right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that question. Yes. So I would say it's kind of all over the place, right? So there are actually some really religious, people who have, consumed this UFO information, and so I guess UFO nuts like me, or have had experiences. And they project or put their, they use that lens to understand the phenomenon. So that's actually
mhm.
kind of a little bit tied to ancient aliens theory. It's kind of just this idea of incarnation and all of that. So it can get very spiritual. And I find people that are really religious. I don't know if religious is the best word, but being an expert on different
Spiritual
religious
or
facts,
yeah.
more like that. It seems a little more, I don't want to say evolved, seems judgmental,
Mhm.
but it's a little bit more expansive.
Mhm.
Right. And it can and then though you have I don't know if atheist is the right word, but you also have totally the other side of it,
Right, just
which is just,
non-believer of
yeah,
anything,
completely
period.
against, yeah, it's totally the opposite. Yeah. I want to just be open-minded, facts, facts, facts.
Mhm.
But no matter what, getting into this topic, there's so much unknown that even if it doesn't lead to some kind of spiritual point of view, it definitely helps you to be open minded
Mhm.
about and just more receptive, I suppose, to like new ideas or ideas that maybe seem weird or
Right.
spiritual, like the psychic, the idea of there being psychics, or
Something that's
trusting your
intangible.
intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah, like invisible kind of. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All over the place though.
Right.
And I found that as I feel like I've become more spiritual in learning about, because it's just you become so small, when you're thinking about like all of this going on. So I found that it's had that effect on me, which I didn't expect.
Mhm.
That wasn't the plan, but yeah, kind of. Yeah.
That's
So it's a
interesting
big.
because I feel like for some people it would be opposite. It's like once aliens exist, like, oh no, God's not real, or like,
Yeah.
there's not a higher power.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
But
guess
yeah,
it
it
just
is.
depends on, one's perspective at the
Mhm.
end of the day.
Totally. It totally can go both ways. I think it definitely, though, is ultimately humbling knowing that you're not the smartest, like
Mhm.
being, in the universe. And so you kind of, it's like the dolls within a doll. It's like, okay, well, how many alien species are out there? Well, where did they come from? Like, do they create, AI like we create AI? And then like, who is the ultimate creator? Like, I do think it gets like super, yeah, the questions just don't stop. It's
Right.
like endless questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's probably also like fear-based or like ignorance-based where you don't want to dive into something more just because like you have a lack of understanding for it or you just don't have the patience to even think outside of what you're normally exposed to or what you're normally interested in. But I find the like cases like you where you're like, yeah, I wasn't really spiritual before, but now I am just because it's kind of humbled me. I think that's the more interesting way of twisting it. It's like, yeah, that's great that something so vast like aliens would make you kind of think about your own existence and like existentially, like what does that mean to you and what does that mean to maybe your family
Yeah.
or how does that extend to your interpersonal relationships?
Oh, it totally can give you an existential crisis. Like when I was
Yeah, I can imagine.
like especially early on when it wasn't, the government was saying UFOs weren't real. I was like, what am I doing looking into something that like I know I'm not like supposed to look into?
Mm-hmm.
And then like, how fast is this like conspiracy? So yeah,
Yeah.
it totally can be like a little, I feel like I got over that. But I'm like kind of bracing for maybe other people to kind of go through that. Like
Yeah.
if this were to keep coming out. Yeah, that's kind of what I remind people is like nothing's really different than it was before. It's just that the awareness, but it's not really new information. It's just like awareness.
Yeah.
It's just real now, so you can't wear your rose-colored glasses anymore.
Yeah, I mean I brought this up before, but it's like we didn't believe that the new species existed in Australia, but then we found it and we took pictures of it and we documented it and we studied it. I'm sure someone cut one open recently just to see what it was like. But I feel like that's the same thing. It's like maybe aliens are like harder to catch or, we could theorize that they're just much more technologically advanced. Therefore, it's like they're just more elusive. But whatever it may be, I think it's just dumb when people completely dismiss like, oh yeah, that's not a thing. It's like
It's kind of like we didn't know how to travel at the speed of sound. Like we thought that was impossible for a really long time. And and that's a pretty common thing now.
Yeah. It's like give it some
It's
time. You'll come around.
Uh-huh.
Boomers.
Yeah.
Am I right? I'm just kidding.
Everything's impossible until it is. Everything's like incredible until it's a mundane and normal, like, and you're used to it.
Yeah. So speaking of,
are there...
go ahead.
You can go ahead. No, you go ahead. Raquel.
I was just going to ask, some people in chat are really curious where you get your research or like how you compile these documents. How does it come by?
Yeah. So when I had started TexasUFOsightings.com back in 2012. So I initially was kind of reporting on things I had seen out there and trying to connect the dots. And then what happened is people just started sending me their reports directly. So I get a lot of reports myself. But what I would say, so I'm not, there are a lot of like field investigators that are going to like the sites all the time and they're investigating, case by case. There's so many sightings happening though all the time. And so for me to go out to every individual like
Yeah.
location, after the sighting occurred is only so fruitful. So what I do is I try to do my best to find out what's been reported on YouTube, what's been reported on Twitter, what's on MUFON, what's on New Fork, what did I get in my email, and then do my best to kind of connect the dots, bring it to the community. So, and I love the community because they're the best. They're the ones that will say, "Yeah, I saw this too," or they'll help debunk a lot of things.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a mixture of it's really crowdsourcing, right? And so maybe somebody sends me a report of a sighting, and then I also saw that it was on MUFON, or I also saw that it was on Twitter or something like that. And so
What
I
is MUFON? You've
oh, I'm
mentioned it a
sorry,
couple
I keep
times.
saying UFO jargon terms. So MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network. And so it's a
Oh.
public UFO reporting organization. And
Interesting.
so you can report your sighting there and they have field investigators, but there's a database for folks like me to view it. There's also the National UFO Reporting Center and then
Oh.
social media. I mean, people just post
Yeah.
things, on social media all the time, like on
Sure.
TikTok,
Yeah.
posting things. I mean, stuff's going viral on TikTok lately. So that's a
Oh.
whole new one to
Yeah.
like a new source of UFO sightings. So
Yeah.
yeah, it really depends. Yeah.
I think that's what made
Interesting.
you as a guest super attractive to us, is that like a lot of the people who when I was researching for, UFO specialists, a lot of them were like outdated websites, like we're not kind, like it just seemed very like ancient and like clipping the newspapers and being like,
Mhm.
it seemed like it
Yeah,
wasn't very current. And
yeah,
I think you crowdsourcing, I mean, more so than ever, I think I get the feel that the community that you exist in, everybody's working to debunk the thing because they want to see what's real. They're not just like, "Oh my god, I saw this alien. It was definitely real, guys." I feel like it's more people like, "Here are a bunch of pictures that we took, different angles, different parts of the city. Can someone explain this to me?" And
yeah,
someone, more so than not, I feel like more people are like, "No, this is what actually it is. It was a glare, blah blah blah. I saw the same thing. I thought the same thing."
yeah, you're totally right. Actually, so, very recently there were and you guys might have even seen it because it was like a mass sighting of strange lights over Hawaii. So I think not just over Oahu, but like multiple islands in Hawaii. And one of my UFO researcher friends lives in Hawaii, and so
Mm.
I
Hmm.
had this nice like boots on the ground in addition to all the stuff I normally do. And he tried to get comments, or he got no comment, I think, from not sure the official one official kind of I don't know, organization of some kind that would know about what's up in the sky in Hawaii. So I was able to get that information from him, and it was a lot of people on Twitter were helping me find out, could this be, yeah, essentially, to back it up. The theory is that it was a rocket that was lost and crashed down, and the problem, and so that explains a lot of sightings, are all our own crazy things, that we send out that are just orbiting us all the time. I mean, there's thousands of
Yeah.
Yeah.
things up there, and we often don't have a plan for their return. So, this is a I think it's kind of an environmental thing too. I think people should, be aware of, and we should keep UFO phenomenon. One of the reasons it might be covered up is because it also relates to things like this, like
Mhm.
all the our own lights up there and what we're doing with them. But yeah, so we were able to conclude that it was likely the re-entry of this rocket, but because we that rocket was lost and we weren't tracking it,
Mhm.
we can't actually know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, but that's a good, like, recent example of just, like, a lot of
Yeah.
different people. I think I have a comment on there right now, that people can read from a man named James Oberg, who is like a ABC UFO consultant, but he's worked at NASA, rocket engineer. So I'm going to be spending some time with his comment,
Yeah.
adding to the story.
Interesting.
So there's that really is usually, it's, hate to be boring, but it's usually not, oh, we
Mhm.
found the gray aliens and here's their ship and they're at Area 51. It's often,
Mhm.
okay, I think that was Elon Musk sending Elon Musk is so frustrating because he sends stuff up there all the time. It looks incredible. People think they're seeing UFOs.
Yeah.
But now because he's always sending stuff up like SpaceX, people will just say, "Oh, that's SpaceX," or "Oh, that's a bad thing." They
Oh.
don't even really bother sometimes
Yeah.
to do the research. Same with drones. Like when drones started being a thing, every UFO is a drone. Well, what about
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
UFOs before the drones?
Yeah.
What were
Were
those?
they also yeah, were those the aliens drones?
So we have so much of our own stuff out there that it's like
Mhm.
it's actually getting harder and harder to tell the difference, I think, between
Interesting.
an ET craft and a man-made craft because
Right.
we're getting good at fancy,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know?
So,
Yeah.
you've gathered all of these you gather all of these stories from various places in the world. Are there, like, UFO hotspots within the US, or are there, like, typical places that tend to pop up through
Yeah.
all of the encounters that you get?
Mhm. Yeah. Get that question a lot, and I feel like my answer is the worst because it's like, "Oh, it just kind of depends." There seems to be, like, there's, like, UFO flaps, so it seems to really depend on the year and the season,
Oh, is
you
there a
know?
UFO season? What's UFO season?
Well, like, for some reason, the triangles in Texas seem to be more prominent in the summertime.
Okay.
There's things like, is it because people are outside more and
Mhm.
looking up? There's so many like, well, why
Yeah.
that question is like, why are people seeing UFOs a lot? Is it again because they're in like rural towns where there's not a lot of light pollution? Um, but you said that you live near an Air Force base, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are definitely sightings that happen around Air Force bases. So there, like,
Mhm.
so I would say hotspots more along those lines, like or near Air Force bases.
Hmm.
Um, but they really are seen all over the place.
Like all
Yeah.
over the
So
world.
anybody can be a UFO witness, if you're just looking up at the sky,
Yeah.
for
Huh.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Everywhere. That's so gosh, it's like
And sometimes
it's
it's a Chinese lantern.
it's so intriguing, but it's also equally terrifying at the same time.
Mhm.
It's like I want to go see an alien, but I also don't wanna see an alien at all. I think I
Paul, like
Yeah.
from that Paul, like that's the alien, I wanna get to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've ever really talked about this with my community. The only and it's because like I'm such like a I wouldn't say I don't believe in aliens. Like I definitely do. I mean, I think it's kind of like Megan said this before. It'd be stupid to not believe that there's some sort of life form that exists somewhere. But I don't know. I always kind of was turned off by the whole like represent the pop representation of aliens. But the one time I saw something that I literally to this day can't explain. I was road tripping through Texas. It was like 2 a.m. and it was pitch black outside except for headlights. And there was like this thing in the sky. And I just thought it was like, to this day, I'm like dismissing it. I'm like, I don't know what it was, but I don't want to say it's an alien. And it like kind of zigzagged and then like just really fast, like kind of disappeared. And I was just
Mhm.
like to my friend, like, did you see? We both saw it. And we were kind of just like, oh, whatever. It's probably some weird government shit. But it's
Mhm.
funny that you mentioned that it's like a lot of sightings happen in the summer in Texas, and it's like, wow, actually, that was exactly when it
That is
was.
summer in Texas, how
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, in the middle of
Dang.
nowhere. Yeah, a lot of that's I mean, because you don't have any of that light pollution, so
Mm-hmm.
you're looking up at those stars and you're
Yeah,
noticing
and that's exactly
everything.
exactly what we were doing. I was stargazing at
Uh-huh.
the like just I
Mhm.
happened to be looking out like into the sky and just being very aware of like the sky. And I don't go outside every night to try and alien hunt or anything like that. Or, I mean, I live in Atlanta, so there's already a lot of light pollution here to begin with. But, you know, like it's not normal for me to just be out in the middle of nowhere in Texas especially to spot something like that.
Yeah. Well, even nowadays, like we all have our phones, you know, when we're
Right.
outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not noticing much.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this. So I have like theories that aliens are real and all this documentation and evidence. And I really try to take abductees for their word and believe their experiences. But I want to leave plenty of room for doubts. I'm not one of those UFO researchers that like, this is how it is. And this is, you know, you got to believe this. And this is what's going to be like disclosed. Because the thing is like, we really don't know. We ultimately don't know. And I think as we can all see in the media, you know, somebody can say that there's aliens or that they saw an alien. That doesn't mean it really happened. And also, so like, let's say there are aliens, right? And they've, you know, briefed people about their existence, right? Well, I mean, how can, I guess what I'm saying is you guys have seen how the news can be confusing and not always present the facts right. So just because, you know, government officials are coming, if they do come out and they say aliens are real or UFOs are real and they're a threat, they're still basing that information on limited information and filtered, compartmentalized, you know, data. And if there are intelligent alien species out there, they're probably more in control of this information than we are.
Absolutely.
So, you know, you can take whatever any human being says with the grain of salt, for that matter, an alien, you know, if it ever comes down to that, you know, you can be a witness yourself or have your own take, and everybody's entitled to that.
Right.
So like, you don't have to have top secret clearance. Like you can believe that aliens, there aren't sentient ones that are interacting with us. And I don't think that that's really a crazy idea either. You know, so I think we should all kind of be open to different theories. And I try to welcome, I have lots of skeptics that are honestly fans and they're constantly like debunking things, but they're great. You know, they keep us all on our toes and they watch all the videos and, you know, read all the articles. So I try to really be welcoming of different.
The food's here.
Ideas.
Oh my God. I'll
And
be right back, guys. I will be back. The food is here.
I'm not so much of an experiencer. I can kind of try to stay objective and
in the middle. Somebody asked in chat about ley lines. Is there any correlation with ley lines in UFOs?
Yeah, I'd like to get. So I feel like it was almost a year that I was obsessed with that and trying to prove something there.
What are ley lines?
So yeah, so ley lines. I don't know what the exact term is. I guess it's technically invisible, made up idea, but the idea of these energy fields kind of around the planet. So just if you literally imagine lines around the planet, and so imagine how the curvature of the Earth and how that might affect energy and gravity. Think about like Skinwalker Ranch. I'd be curious to see if that's on a theoretical ley line. So there's a phenomenon called earthquake lights. It's a real thing, and ball lightning, and so that is, and so those happen like often like volcanoes and mountain ranges and like during like earthquakes and natural disasters and things. There's a scientific explanations for ball lightning and earthquake lights, but then there's of course the UFO communities, different ideas. So there's definitely something to, you know, just different parts of the world producing anomalous lights and energy that makes sense. So like, you know, think about electricity and all that stuff. So that, I think back when I was really into that, that's kind of what I was finding. Yeah, I really don't know. I'd be curious to look into it again. Getting all curious again, and I'm wondering if
I feel like it's the Charlie Day meme where you have all of your your eyewitnesses on your map laying out where they all are and the hotspots trying to piece together the patterns.
Get the whole map out. No, it's so true.
Yeah, I love it. That's what I'd be doing. If I was in your
What
case, I'd
happened?
be doing the exact same thing. I'd have a map with all the ley lines plotted out of the world, trying to figure out where the occurrences of everything is. Uh,
Yeah.
Murder mystery
I
style
mean,
with like a pin, like a
yeah.
red pin, and then like the red string that's connecting all of them together.
Mhm.
I
Oh,
think
yeah, I mean, we have files and stuff, like,
yeah.
so we
Yeah.
I maybe I'll do a picture one of these days.
Yeah, in my
It's
brain I picture
madness.
your office to look exactly like that, where it's like big like question marks, like how, where.
You know, thankfully for me, because everything's, like, digital, I think it keeps it, like, all contained, you
Sure,
know, like,
yeah,
all
yeah,
in
yeah.
the computer.
Stop
But
ruining
yeah, if
my dreams, Jane.
right. That's, like, the old style, like, investigation,
Yeah.
I mean, that's all that you could do, you know?
Yeah,
Imagine what
Yeah.
they were working with back then, you know, they had
yeah.
none of this.
Newspaper clippings, as I
So
mentioned
yes,
before.
exactly, newspaper and I have those books and files from those, like, you know, so we go to, we find stuff from all different places, but, like, we have, like, clippings and things like that from, you know, researchers from the past and stuff, so that we try to bring online, you know, but yeah.
So,
I mean, I obviously don't care really about what people think of me when you get into, like, the topic of
Yeah.
UFOs, so,
yeah,
yeah, I'm happy to see all those weird connections.
you probably have to have a very thick skin. I mean, like streamers, you probably get bashed a lot and be called crazy,
Oh,
especially like with pop culture, with like the aliens dude with the crazy hair, and like the aliens meme.
yeah, Tsoukalos or Giorgio Tsoukalos.
Yeah.
Yeah, so funny story. So his wife, I actually have an interview with her on our
Oh,
YouTube
that's so
channel.
exciting.
Yeah, so Chris Beeble, she's the sweetest, just this beautiful woman, and so we talked about, you know, her thoughts about it. But I did ask her, is like, well, do you guys, you know, talk about, you know, like these theories and stuff? And they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, they actually do. Like,
That's
you
cute.
know, the wife kind of talk about this
Yeah.
stuff. But
Oh,
yeah, so a
that's
Tsoukalos,
amazing.
people know, yeah, his name's Giorgio Tsoukalos. He's the main guy, like, on Ancient Aliens, crazy hair. People, you know, dress up as him for Halloween, like, every year. But yeah, he's quite entertaining, and,
Mhm.
I
you know,
believe
obviously
it.
he's part of a pretty sensational show.
Sure,
So, I
yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of very serious scientists who aren't a fan of, I guess, the theories of ancient aliens, because it goes against, well, it goes against all of our history, right? The idea of there
Mhm.
being, you know, aliens, not just, so there's the question of UFOs today, but then what will that lead you to next? Well, how long have they been here?
Mhm.
So that will probably be the next, you know, question, you know, for us to answer, that might be not be as of scary as the idea of aliens abducting us today,
Hmm.
but people might feel comfortable talking about the ideas. Well, could they have been around in the past?
Yeah.
So
I mean, it makes sense. That's one of my favorite theories is that they like helped build the pyramids and that they've been around like helping ancient humans like evolve
mhm,
essentially, which is kind of like I mean, if I'm an alien and I'm an empathetic alien, like I'm one of the types that's nice and is like letting you project your consciousness into my heavenly, earth existence, I'd probably be doing the same thing too. I'd be going down to these humans that look like they're budding like creatures that could be amazing for the existence
mhm,
of whatever this is and
Right.
helping them like uh succeed in
mhm,
existence. Like I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be visiting them and helping them out, and I'll be in their god. Like, oh yeah, I get to play god for
mhm,
a bunch of these little
right?
small-brained humans. Like, heck yeah, I'll
Mhm.
fly down in my spaceship, which at that point could have just been like a plane, like we have, you know. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I know a lot of folks are like into this, or new to this. But there is like a pattern of these craft actually evolving over time. Like, so maybe starting off
Cool.
as something So like there's a famous case, 1897, Aurora, Texas. And there was a cigar ship that purportedly crashed into this small Texas town, and they recovered a small like alien body, they thought. At least that's what the locals say, and buried it. But what's fascinating about that, you'll find people say that was made up, but they can't prove it. I mean, this was late 1800s, but you can also
Yeah.
find the newspaper reports. But there were a bunch of other cigar ship sightings in the late 1800s all over America, and they were associated with humanoids and other like alien contact. But it was totally different. It's not your flying saucer. It's not a triangle.
Interesting.
And they actually, people thought Thomas Edison was making them. He had to go on record and say, "I'm not
What?
making." So it's kind of like today, if you're like, wait, is that Elon Musk or is that us? So you had the same thing going on in the late 1800s with a totally different
Wow.
type of ship that was also, of course, they had hot air balloons and things and blimps, back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they
Well,
trying
and
to
it's
look
like
for our past? I don't know.
even the difference between like flying saucers, which were a common thing to see, to now like the triangle
Mhm.
shaped ship that is seen. Like that's a pretty obvious change too.
Definitely changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's oh my gosh. If this hasn't solidified your belief in UFOs, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, I guess as long as they're unidentified flying objects, we can probably all agree on that one at least. but-
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
A question in chat. Just a fun one. What is your favorite alien TV show, movie, something in pop culture that has depicted what you're pretty much studying?
Oh yeah, that's so funny. So we have that you say that. So I'm fat. I love movies and TV shows. I almost did movie reviewing um early on, like when I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. So and I'm always under the impression that like, I'm not under the impression, but I try to watch movies and shows with like, could there have been a government consultant on this? Like, what could be, what's real or not real. So there's so many. A really good one would be Close Encounters
I
of
love
the
that
Third.
movie. It's a good one.
And I mean, it's a great movie regardless. No matter what, it's just fun. Steven Spielberg, obviously, master,
Mm-hmm.
and Richard Dreyfuss, great actor. And that just details, for those who haven't seen it or don't remember, it maybe has been a little minute. Yeah, he's almost like imagining he has an encounter, but then he has like these visions that like draw him toward the end of the movie to it ends. Spoiler alert. This is an old movie, guys. That should be allowed. Um, leads to I guess like a ship, and he says bye bye to humanity or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is the actual sighting he had was actually similar to the Cash Landrum incident, which happened later in the 1980s of the big craft that like burns his face. He actually has a burn.
Oh
Burn.
wow.
So that part. So if the Cash Landrum incident is real, which it was real, aliens or not, that phenomenon was probably happening before the 80s. And so it does show up in Close Encounters in that movie. Doctor as well, there was a consultant on Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, cool.
Dr. J. Allen Hynek, so there's like, how we were talking about MUFON, Mutual UFO Reporting Network. There was, during the 50s and 60s, it was called Project Blue Book. And it was a public UFO reporting group, investigation group of the U.S. government. We now know that there were also private, secret ones going on, like Project Grudge and Project Sign and things like that. You can go look it up. Project Blue Book, though, was official. They actually did say UFOs were real back then. And they had people like Dr. J. Allen Hynek, scientists, investigating them. So Dr. J. Allen Hynek consulted on Close Encounters. He's also considered to be the father of ufology. He said that his opinion about Project Blue Book was not that they were actually investigating UFOs. Well, maybe they were, but that the goal of it was to actually not excite the public. Was to ultimately debunk, explain everything. And of course, now we know those studies ended up, that project was shut down. We now know that it secret ones continued through the Pentagon UFO program today.
Yeah.
But he actually consulted on Close Encounters, was part of Project Blue Book, and to make matters even more amazing, so there's, if people recall the specific plot of Richard Dreyfuss's character, he's envisioning the Devil's Tower in Utah, and that's where he ultimately ends up traveling to meet the aliens. And then throughout the movie, he's like making these like mud. Uh, he's like making like a mud
I remember
mold.
that. Yeah. It's like mashed potatoes and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mashed potatoes. There. Yeah. This first starts out with like at the dinner table, and he's doing the mashed potatoes, and it just keeps evolving. And he's like obsessed with this idea. Well, around the same time, there was a program called Project Stargate. So this has now been declassified. It was classified at the time. If you've seen The Men Who Stare at Goats, that's what it's based on. George Clooney movie.
Yeah.
Project Stargate. So think about it. We've got Project Book, all this stuff going on. And then we've got Project Stargate, which is a CIA program to study remote viewing and psychic phenomenon. And essentially we could guess to militarize it, but this was pretty kind of like one of the safer. This is not like MK Ultra. It's like one of the fun ones where they just seem to be like a lot of curious scientific minds secretly studying this. And so they would do these remote viewing experiments where they'd have, put something in an envelope, and then the person would say what it was. But I was digging through those files, and I found a remote viewing experiment. I couldn't, based on the files, it looked like of the Devil's Tower. So they actually use the Devil's Tower, Utah.
What's the Devil's Tower?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Devil's Tower is just a big mountain.
Okay.
But there's probably a geological formation, is Mountain Butte or something that I'm not referring to. But you've seen it. It's really beautiful in Utah. Like people go and they climb it, and it's a huge attraction. It's natural attraction. Trying to pull it up here. But so anyways, Project Stargate, though, like in the 70s, was doing this remote viewing psychic experiment about the Devil's Tower. And then that was a central theme in Close Encounters, this whole idea of visiting this specific place.
Right.
And then and of course Project Blue Book and the consulting. And so that movie seems like it was maybe prepping us for this. And Spielberg is obviously loves making UFO alien movies. There's a rumor that his other movie, E.T., was introduced by Ronald Reagan at the White House as being based on a true story.
Crazy.
Ronald Reagan had a famous UFO sighting, so he was into it as well. So all the Steven Spielberg alien movies, I would recommend to watch, because there's a number of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I'm trying to, I guess it's called the Devil's Tower National Monument. Big mount. I don't know what the geological exact term is.
I'm sure we could Google
Someone
it.
in chat that it's a tree stump that looks like
That's the theory. I didn't say that.
Oh.
Conspiracy, I thought. Monument. But yeah, here
I can show it on stream. There's a picture of it. Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
A very good picture of it. There's some much better but yeah, it's just a famous site. And but the overlap between this top secret, psychic studies, and it ending up as a plot element, in this movie, which came first, the chicken or the egg, or does life imitate art imitate life? So yeah, Close Encounters, E.T. Like I said, I've got E.T. still my favorite.
Yeah.
Like movie period.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's so many questions flying through chat, but unfortunately we're kind of running out of time here. Yeah. Like someone asked about space aliens, possibly being interdimensional beings. Some more pop questions like what's your favorite blah blah blahs. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that UFOJane has her own platform on YouTube. She also does podcasts, and she's had a number of guests, including some celebrity guests on her podcast to talk, about aliens. So if you guys are curious as to joining her community or asking her some more questions, where are some places that we could shout you out, or what are some things that are coming up that you'd want to talk about with us?
Yeah. So I'm really trying to focus on the YouTube lately. So we've got some fun like interviews and stuff coming. But yeah, so you can search UFOJane. The handle's Texas UFO sightings. But I mean, I'm everywhere. I'm on Instagram, UFOJane TX Texas. People think it's UFOJane X, but that's okay. I like that too. If you're in Texas, TexasUFOsightings.com. We've also got a really big Facebook for that if you're into the local sightings. But yeah, I would love to hear from you guys if you've ever seen anything. And this has been so much fun. I bet I'm excited to have this is my introduction to Twitch. And this
yay.
So I hope to come into your guys' world more too. And
of course.
We're really only just scratching the surface with you. I feel like we just asked pretty vague questions.
When COVID is over, we're gonna go on an IRL UFO stream hunt.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so much fun. I can't wait. Thank you so much, Jane, for coming on. This is we had so much fun. We'd love to have you on another time to talk even more about
super
UFOs,
informative. Like you just had your facts and you're like, it happened in 1897. And I'm like, Jesus, this woman has insane memory. Maybe she's an alien. It makes sense. Anyways,
they're called skinwalkers for a reason.
When's your next podcast upload that we could expect?
I'm trying to get something out every week, so I should have another probably in about by next weekend. Trying to get it's hard. I'm sure you guys can relate because I've got an interview, I've got to edit and stuff, but the goal is to have one every single week. So
awesome. Make sure you hit subscribe. Like her latest video, comment and say that the Hi There podcast sent you.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Go give some love to UFOJane. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
For coming on, for hanging out with us. Really appreciate you.
And also just wanted to quickly shout out our Spreaker website where you could download these podcasts for free. And this one's going to be on there shortly. And we've also been uploading these episodes on YouTube as well. So,
and these episodes are now, you can listen to us on Spotify. You can listen to us, I think, on everywhere.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, we're on Spotify now. I Googled it.
Sick. Okay, well, there you go.
I needed to show someone our podcast, and I was like, I wonder if it's on Spotify.
Yeah.
And it was. So we're on Spotify.
Ubiquitous.
I think we're on everything now.
Good. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for hopping on again, UFOJane. We definitely, again, would love to have you back at some point. But yeah, let's go raid someone. Megan, do you have any suggestions?
Of course. I'm looking right now. So at the end of all the streams, it's a common thing on Twitch that you raid another channel, and it just sends all of your viewers to that person's channel that is live.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for the best.
We could raid Tyler Loves Music. I don't think we've raided him before.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
RAIDED,
raid, like we're raiding a village. Yeah.
I love Twitch. That's so great.
Very Viking of us. Tyler Loves Music. And we like to raid other music streamers as well, just because that's their primary genre. We're not full-time podcasters, but we like to show some love to the music community because we're obviously not as big as gaming and spreading awareness.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Twitch becomes music.
They're trying.
Almost.
Yeah, we're trying to get there. All right, rating now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
See you later. Yeah. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes.